So I'm going to talk about Plectrums, these little guys. Now, because they're small, they're cheap, little bits of plastic, they're quite often overlooked in terms of the equipment that you use. A couple of questions I regularly get asked, aside from what guitar should I buy, what amplifier should I buy, is about the other stuff as well, the other equipment, and obviously Plectrums are part of that. So a couple of the things I get asked is, which Plectrum do you recommend I should buy, and how should I be gripping my Plectrum or holding my Plectrum? Now, as with many of these type of questions, there isn't a single answer. I can't say to you now which is the best Plectrum to buy for yourself, and I can't tell you the definitive answer on how you should be holding that Plectrum. What I can do, and what I'm hoping to do now, is explain a few of the things about Plectrums and about holding Plectrums and using Plectrums that might inform your choices. In terms of which Plectrum to buy, you will probably have noticed, if you've ever been in a music shop, or if you looked on Amazon or eBay or wherever, there's probably a million different types of Plectrum of different shapes, sizes, colours, thicknesses is one important thing, the thickness of your Plectrum, but there's so many choices out there, so it's really difficult if you don't know where to begin and where to get started. There's a bit of a conundrum here as well, which I'll explain. Once you get a bit more experience in playing, you will learn to identify what you like and what you don't like. So only with experience you will know that you like certain Plectrums or certain Plectrums you don't like. The same as with different guitars. My suggestion would be, and before I make my suggestion, I'll just explain, because so many different types of Plectrums, that some things that aren't important are the colour, so that's not going to affect anything. What writing it's got on it, that's not going to affect it. Whether it's got the name of your favourite band on it or whatever, that's not going to affect it. The main thing that's going to affect it is the thickness of the Plectrum. I would say that's the single most important thing that affects your playing, how you feel with it and how it sounds. Beyond that, the second most important thing is going to be the size of the Plectrum. That is going to determine how it feels in your hand. So I've got a few Plectrums in front of me here. This is the smallest one I've got available. It's a small little teardrop shaped Plectrum, and this, hopefully you can see them at the same distance. That's it's actually more of a triangular shape, but physically it's a much larger Plectrum. So the physical size of the Plectrum will govern how it feels in your hand, and you'll have your own preference for that. When you're starting off you won't, because you won't any different, but as you get more experience you'll develop a preference for how large or how small your Plectrum wants to be. The most important thing that I mentioned is the thickness of the Plectrum, so how firm it is or how bendy it is in your hand. Again, I've got a couple here. I don't know how well it comes across on the camera, but this Plectrum is the thickest one I've got to hand at the minute. It's I don't know, it's about 1.5 millimeters thick, I think, if I was to measure it, and it literally I cannot bend that. It's almost perfectly solid. So it's a very thick, what I would call a heavy Plectrum. So when I talked about millimeters, then some companies measure them in millimeters. Some will say a heavy Plectrum, medium Plectrum, or a light Plectrum. I'll say that's a heavy Plectrum. I cannot bend it in my fingers, so it's absolutely solid. This type of Plectrum, that thickness, I was using up until fairly recently, and I changed to a different type. I'll explain that later as well, changing your preferences. The opposite is this one, with funky sort of leopard colours on it. This is the thinnest one I've got in front of me at the minute. This one I can bend quite easily, so it's a lot more flexible and a lot more soft. So the thickness and how much your Plectrum bends, that's the single most important thing I would say in your Plectrum. So a heavy Plectrum, medium Plectrum, a light Plectrum, they're the three main descriptors I would use in terms of different types of Plectrums. Shape is the other thing I mentioned. Now you've got, like with this one I've just showed you, It's a teardrop shape. This other one, this was the biggest one that I've got in front of me. This is more of a triangular shape plectrum. Now, on face value, the actual shape of it might not seem that important, but one of the benefits that this shape, triangular shape, has is that with a teardrop shape, like this one, we've got the back side of it, which is all completely rounded, and quite clearly at the bottom we've got the tip of it, and that's the bit that we use to hit the strings with. Now, with a triangular shaped plectrum, it's got 3 tips on it, so there's 3 different areas that I can use to attack the strings with. So you want to use the pointy bit, obviously that's the bit that you want to use to be playing the strings with. With the triangle shape, I've got 3 different areas doing that. Why does that matter? Again, it's personal preference, but one thing that I've sometimes found is that when I've been playing for an extended period of time, if I've been playing with a band, which I've recently started doing a series on, or playing gigs, you get a bit sweaty, and your plectrum can get a bit slippery and slidey in your hand, and sometimes it will turn round in your hand like that, and you can end up with the blunt side of your plectrum attacking the strings. So rather than having to try and spin it all the way back round to the pointy side, the triangle shaped plectrum gives you more chance of being able to just move it slightly back to the pointy side to attack the strings. So I've recently, I say recently, probably 12-18 months ago, I've gravitated more towards a triangle shaped plectrum. For my preference, that might not suit you. So those are the 3 aspects of plectrums that are really important. So going back to the question, what would I recommend that you get? You're starting out, you've just gone to the shop, bought your first guitar, you need a plectrum. What would I recommend to you? I'd probably recommend to start off with the ordinary teardrop shaped plectrum that doesn't have the triangle effect. There's nothing wrong with the triangle effect, but when you're starting out, I would say it's quite good practice to get used to keeping your plectrum held in a certain way. I'll come to how you hold the plectrum later, but by having that point of focus, it gets you used to good practice in terms of holding your plectrum and keeping it the right way around. As I say, I'll talk about that later. So I'd recommend whatever colour you want, I don't mind. Nice leopard skin like that, or a black one like the other one, or a red one. I would recommend the teardrop shape to begin with, and in terms of thickness, what I would say is I'll buy 3 plectrums to begin with. I'd get 1 medium one, 1 heavy one, and 1 light one. So you've got 3 different thicknesses that you can experiment with and have a go with, because here's the thing, if you haven't used the different thicknesses, you won't know what they feel like, and you might not know what works best for you. So by buying all 3, and they're not expensive, I don't know how much they are online, but in my music shop they're about 50p basic plectrums, or maybe 60p, something like that last time I bought some. So you're looking at, you know, between £1.50 and £2 to get yourself 3 plectrums, and that's going to give you the opportunity to experiment with them, and I recommend you do experiment with the 3 different thicknesses to see what you like. In my music shop that I go to, I've mentioned it before on this channel because it's absolutely brilliant with me, they've always been fantastic, Pro Solo in Burnley. If I was to be a new student buying a guitar from there, they'd probably give me those plectrums along with the guitar as part of the deal. So don't forget, if you're buying a guitar, be cheeky, just say, can I have 3 plectrums with it as well? And decent shop that's going to look after you, they'll probably give them to you. There's more than 3 different thicknesses, there's quite a lot, but that'll give you just a starting point to get going with. So that's what I would buy. Just one last thing on buying plectrums. They do come, there's lots of different makes of plectrums. Certainly if you look online, you can find them really cheap, and if you buy like a multi-bag of them, you might buy 10, 20, 30, 50, whatever. You can get them super cheap, and they seem to be like maybe 10p, 20p each. You're thinking, wow, that's brilliant, because they do wear out, they're plastic and you're playing against metal strings, so they're going to wear out after a while. Word of warning, just when you're buying cheap plectrums, personally I've found that they don't tend to last as long, and the quality isn't as good. When I say quality, I mean the consistency of how it's made. So you're buying a good quality new plectrum, the edges on it are going to be nicely beveled, and it's going to feel the same as if you buy two good quality Plectrums, they should both feel identical. I've bought cheap Plectrums before, picked them out of the bag, and one feels different from the next one, and I find that quite off-putting. So I would say it's false economy buying cheap, unbranded Plectrums. There's some decent brands out there. Some of the ones that I've showed you here predominantly are this one. That's a Gibson brand. You might have heard of Gibson, they make guitars, they've made them for decades. That's a decent brand of Plectrums. Never had a problem with those. Myself personally, I've used predominantly a brand called Jim Dunlop. I'll put a link to any of these things so you have to remember them. They're big in making accessories and stuff for guitars like that. I don't get paid by Jim Dunlop, I'm not sponsored by them or anything like that. So there's nothing in it for me to say these names, or Gibson or whatever. I buy my Plectrums with my own money, and I'm just talking about my experience. But I found these to be really super quality, and I've never ever, despite what size and what shape I've tried, I've never had a bad one, and they're quite well known for the Plectrums. So a little bit extra spend, let's say it costs you £1 to get a duck top quality one, and you're going to buy 3, that's going to cost you £3. It's not the end of the world, is it? So that's buying Plectrums. How do you hold your Plectrum? Again, there's no fixed single answer for that. What I would suggest, if you're not sure on this, is have a look on YouTube. Have a look at loads of different guitar players, as many as you can be bothered watching, and I guarantee you will find that most of them hold the Plectrum slightly differently to any of the others. Whoever you, let's say for imagine you want to learn to play guitar because you want to be like Eric Clapton, or you want to be like Brian May, or you want to be like John Petrucci, or you've got someone that oh yeah, I love that player, I want to play like them. Watch them play, and then watch somebody else play, and they'll hold it differently, even professional musicians who've had years experience of this. So there isn't a single correct method of holding a Plectrum in your hand. It mainly comes down to what's comfortable to you, and again that's going to come down to experience, what works and what doesn't work. I can tell you what works for me, and I can tell you some things to avoid to get you going, but experiment, try some different techniques, have a look at as many other players as you can, and see what you can learn from that. So if I pick up my Plectrum just off the side there, literally because of my experience, as soon as I pick this thing up, my hand has automatically sort of grabbed it in the way that I would normally play it, because normally when I pick up a Plectrum I'm about to start playing guitar. From the front side of my hand, I'm sort of gripping it between my thumb and my first finger. My first finger's bent round the knuckle on my first finger on it. But that's how I instinctively hold my Plectrum. It's something I've developed over the years, and as I say, it works for me. That's not the only way. You might find people hold it with 2 fingers and the thumb, maybe even 3 fingers and the thumb, maybe even just a second finger and the thumb. I've seen all these things. In terms of holding the thing, a couple of things to be aware of is how close to the tip you hold the Plectrum. So I tend to hold quite close to the tip. It might be easy to see on this coloured one. So there's not a lot of the Plectrum exposed. In my opinion, from what I've experienced, that gives me a greater degree of control and gives me less chance of dropping the Plectrum. If I was to hold the Plectrum, exaggerated like that, right on the back edge of it, then I wouldn't feel as in control of my picking, and I'd be more likely to drop the Plectrum because I've got very little grip on it there. So when I start hitting something like a string, it could easily fall out of my hand. Finally, in terms of holding your Plectrum, and this is, I would say, the rule, is how tight do you grip your Plectrum. Now, you don't want to be gripping it so tight that it's the last Plectrum in existence on this earth, and if you lose it, the world's going to end. So you're not fighting your Plectrum. I've just been gripping tightly, just because I've been talking about gripping tightly for what, 10 seconds there, and my hand's tired. My hand's tired, I'm not going to be able to play effectively. So that's way too tight. If you grip it really loosely, like you're frightened of the Plectrum, or like it's made of dog poo or something that you don't really want to touch, like that, again, you're not going to have enough grip, and when you come to pick something, it's going to get knocked out of your hand. So you'll find that that sweet point of how tight to hold it through playing and through experience. Just real quick before I finish, going back to what I said just earlier about buying 3 different thicknesses of plectrum, you may not always use the same thickness of plectrum depending on what style of music you're playing, what type of music you're playing. I use the thick plectrum that gives me, like, it's very heavy, it doesn't bend much, I feel like I've got a lot of control over that. When I'm playing electric guitar, particularly when I'm playing faster pieces or heavy metal styles on guitar, I like that particular setup for me. When I'm playing my acoustic guitar, I've said before on the channel I tend to prefer playing either thumb strumming or fingerstyle with the acoustic guitar. Sometimes I do use a plectrum, in which case this bendy plectrum that I don't normally like for my electric guitar, I like that for strumming along on the chords on the acoustic guitar. It feels better to me, and in my opinion it sounds better. So by having a choice of plectrums, gives me the versatility of being able to play in different ways, play in different styles, and at the end of the day it's about what makes me feel comfortable playing the instrument, and the same applies to you. It's what makes you feel comfortable playing the instrument, because only by feeling comfortable will you be able to enjoy it.